If you ever heard a speech that just sticks with you, like a message so powerful it feels like it's been imprinted on your brain, some words, they just have this power to change how we think. And today, we're going to deconstruct the blueprint behind those unforgettable words. Let's dive in.
So, for our case study, we're going to look at one of the all-time greats, Denzel Washington's incredible 2011 Fall Forward commencement speech. It is an absolute masterclass in messaging, and this quote right here, this is one of the core ideas that makes it so incredibly powerful.
So that's the big question, right? Is it just Denzel's unique star power, or is there an actual blueprint underneath it all that makes his words resonate so deeply? Well, we're about to find out that it's this fascinating mix of really timeless principles and practical techniques that anyone, and I mean anyone, can learn from.
Okay, so first things first, let's break down the central theme of his speech. It's a pretty simple, but honestly, a radical reframing of a concept we all have to deal with: failure.
Think about it. Most of us are taught to have a plan B, right? Something to fall back on. But Washington just flips that whole idea on its head. He argues that a safety net can actually hold you back. Instead, he tells us to fall forward, to embrace failure not as some kind of setback, but as a critical part of the journey. You fall, you learn, and you actually land further ahead than where you even started.
And to back this up, he used the absolute perfect example: Thomas Edison. We all remember him for inventing the light bulb, but we don't really talk about the 1,000 failed experiments it took to get there. Washington's point is that those weren't failures at all. They were 1,000 steps toward the solution. It just goes to show that taking a risk isn't just an option. It's a prerequisite for any real reward.
Okay, so that's the powerful message. But the delivery, that's just as important. And what's so incredible is that the framework Denzel uses isn't new at all. In fact, it's, get this, over 2,000 years old.
This right here, this is Aristotle's rhetorical triangle, and it's the ancient foundation we're talking about. It shows that any truly persuasive message is built on three pillars: logos, ethos, and pathos. And as you're about to see, Denzel's speech is a perfect modern-day example of this ancient blueprint in action.
First up is logos, which is the appeal to logic. You can think of this as the intellectual backbone of the message. Denzel builds this by clearly laying out his main points and then backing them up with concrete examples, like the whole Thomas Edison story. This gives his inspirational message a solid, rational structure that the audience can easily follow and, actually accept.
Next up is ethos, and this is all about credibility. Basically, why should we listen to this person? Well, for starters, he's Denzel Washington, an Oscar-winning actor. That alone gives him massive authority. But he builds even more credibility by being humble, admitting he's nervous, and sharing his own failures. It makes him seem authentic and completely trustworthy.
And finally, we have pathos, the appeal to emotion. And this is where Denzel truly shines. He uses humor, a little self-deprecation, and these incredibly moving personal stories, like telling the audience about his own failed auditions. These anecdotes create such a powerful emotional connection that his message isn't just heard, it's really felt.
All right, so we've got the powerful core idea and we've got the ancient Greek framework. But how do you actually build a message like this from the ground up? Let's get practical with some guidance from the experts over at Toastmasters International.
So the very first step, before you even write a single word, is defining your purpose. For Denzel, it was probably something like, my goal is to convince these graduates that failure is the fuel for their journey forward. Having that single, sharp sentence as your North Star, it just changes everything. So once you have your purpose, you need a structure. Denzel actually uses what's called the keyhole method. He starts with a really personal story, that's the particular. Then he expands to this universal principle of falling forward, that's the general, and then he narrows it all the way back down to a direct challenge for the students, which is the particular again. This structure just makes a huge idea feel incredibly personal and actionable.
Okay, let's distill all of this down even further. How can you apply these ideas to, say, your next presentation, or an important email, or even just a tough conversation?
Here's a brilliant, simple framework from Toastmasters. Before you write, just answer these three questions. For Denzel, it's crystal clear. 1. The message? You must take risks and fail. 2. Why does it matter to them? Well, they're just starting out and are probably terrified of failing. And 3. What should they hold on to? The simple idea of falling forward. That kind of laser focus is what gives a message its real power.
And hey, let's not forget the basics. All of these advanced techniques, they still rely on a really solid foundation.
A clear opening that grabs attention, a well-organized body where you make your case, and a powerful conclusion that brings it all home. These are the fundamentals that hold everything else together.
So, we have the core message, we've got the ancient framework, and the modern toolkit. But there's one last ingredient that ties it all together. The one thing that you just can't fake. And here it is, maybe the most important takeaway of all. Techniques are just tools. You can master logos, ethos, and pathos, but if you don't genuinely believe in what you're saying, the audience will feel it instantly. Denzel's speech works because his purpose is authentic. He's speaking from the heart, and that, right there, is the source of its true, lasting impact.
This quote, wow, it really drives that purpose home, doesn't it? He's reminding all of us that our time and our gifts are finite. It's not about what we accumulate, it's about the impact we make and what we contribute. He connects his message about personal failure to a much, much larger purpose, serving the world with your unique talents.
And this is where he leaves it. After giving us the philosophy, the framework, and all that inspiration, he turns the question back to us. It's not just a conclusion, it's a challenge. It just hangs in the air long after the applause fades, forcing us to ask ourselves the very same thing. And that, right there, is the mark of a truly powerful message.